Hello, good morning, and welcome to CosmoQuest. It is not Monday, as it usually is when you have me. It is Tuesday, but nevertheless, here I am. I'm your host, Gillian Rhodes. It is November 10th in the year that shall not be named, but is slightly better now since last week. And it is my show and so therefore we're talking about astronomy and art and all of the wonderful ways that it intersects and collides and fuses. And today I have a wonderful guest who I have not met in person. I've now met digitally, but I saw his work exhibited in Pakistan be a year and a half, 2 years, something like this.
2018.
Yeah, ago. And I just thought it was wonderful. And I was thinking about artists to invite for this show. And I thought of Omar, and I've been trying to track him down for the last few months. We finally managed to make it happen. So I'm super excited for him to be here. This is Omar Gilani, and he's a digital media artist. I'm not sure how do you introduce yourself? Hi, by the way, Omar. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hi, thanks for having me, Gillian, and thanks for your flexibility these past few months. I had a lot of things I had to deal with, but I'm happy we're able to do this.
Yeah, me too.
In terms of description, I just say I'm a digital artist because it's easiest. But yeah, I do work that spans like 2D art, 3D animations, and then a lot of work for different industries. But all of it falls under the gambit of digital art.
Okay, great. I just before we get into the conversation, I've seen that there's so this is broadcast live on Twitch. So the people subscribe and follow, and when they do, and they support the CosmoQuest channel, I always reward them. So somebody has given bits, and so they get a happy dance. So thank you the way it goes for your bits, and good morning to you. So, Omar, I saw something really interesting on your website that you started off studying robotics, and
Yeah.
actually you were doing a doctorate, a PhD, or a master's in robotics when you took a right turn and went off towards art. So, how did that happen?
Yeah, I am from Pakistan, which you are now a little bit acquainted with. And in Pakistan, like I'm third born, but the eldest son. So for me, there was a set path, like
Right. Yeah.
doctor, engineer sort of thing. And I literally picked engineering because I like math more than biology. And I took that as far as it could go. I was in a doctorate program, and I was studying, like it was a really interesting program, but at a certain point, when something is not for you, there's only so much that you can stretch it. So I quit that, came back to Pakistan, and I wasn't sure I was going to be an artist yet, but that's just kind of how things turned out. It seemed like the best intersection, digital art, of like technical skills and this need to create stuff that I seem to have. So it's something that I kind of fell into.
Yeah. And so how did you end up choosing kind of like digital art and digital media? How is that process?
Um, so I've always drawn. I think that's like a prerequisite. I was always the doodler, caricatures of teachers and that sort of thing. At some point in university, I remember seeing a speed painting video, like it's a digital video of some person painting a portrait. And it just seemed amazing. And there's also like logistic issues. I was in a dorm and it was really small, and I didn't have space for like canvases and stuff.
Right.
And a
Yeah.
tablet is just more convenient. And there's something about computers that's just interesting to me. So it seemed like magic. I remember, like, I don't know when the internet was introduced in your life, but I was like maybe 10. And
Yeah,
I
around there.
remember like Googling, well, it wasn't even Google back then, but searching up an image and seeing it come on screen. And that was like magic because suddenly we're in a world where you can, the computer is no longer just DOS, And since then, I've had this attraction towards digital imagery. So it was a no-brainer.
Yeah. And you can correct me if I say that, but generally, it seems like most of the work you're doing is kind of inspired by games or science fiction, or kind of in this area.
Yeah, again, like it's what I fell into a little bit. I was teaching once I quit the PhD. I was teaching at a university and just kind of learning art on the side. Still not sure if it was going to be a profession. And after 2 years, I think I got my skills up enough that I got a job at a game studio. So once I was there, it's kind of like you get trained in a certain way, and then mix that with just this love for sci-fi and fantasy. So I just started making things based in that, what would you call it, like that style of work, but in Pakistan.
Right.
So yeah, it was just again the environment I was in kind of influenced that.
Right. That makes sense. So, a lot of the images that I've kind of picked out, are very much like sci-fi inspired. And I think obviously what's really interesting about them is that they're all very much in a South Asian or Pakistani context. So,
Yeah,
and I think you have that as kind of like that was all what was part of the exhibition that I saw, which was Pakistan Plus. And it was incorporating virtual reality and augmented reality and all this kind of stuff. So how did that series come about? Was it just kind of the images came first, and you're like, hey, I should make an exhibition about it, or was it like a project that you made the images for?
the images definitely came first. This was like a personal project that I was just like doing for fun on the side and then putting up online, and someone put it together in like one of those, like this Pakistani artist work will blow your mind sort of things.
Okay.
And it blew up, and then it became a thing. Like it took on a life of its own. And that was cool because it showed me that there's more people that are interested in this sort of stuff than just me. And it seems to like resonate because I was literally just smashing together things that I found interesting, aesthetically and also in terms of themes. And it just kind of took a life of its own. Then I applied for a grant in the Prince Claus grant in Amsterdam, and they were kind enough to fund these exhibitions. So the one that you saw in Lahore was part of 4 exhibitions around Pakistan, which is awesome. Like they just gave me a bunch of money to exhibit my stuff however I wanted. So then we could do VR and AR and all this crazy stuff. It was really cool. So yeah, but
That is
it
amazing.
started off just just doodling on the weekends, and it just went snowball from there.
Yeah. I just think, it's so I've actually there's been one other guest that I had for this show, Najib Jatoy. I don't know if you've heard his name. He's based in Karachi, and he's been doing these space series, which are basically digital collages where he's mashing up kind of his photography with space images. And that's also it was both his work and the images that I saw from you with like the robots in Lahore and the flying truck art and this kind of stuff is that it's so recognized because I live in Lahore, and
Yeah,
so I see these things and I recognize them immediately that this is part of life here.
yeah,
But it's so unusual in the sci-fi universe to have these elements around. So I mean, was it something that you did intentionally, kind of to, I don't know, make a statement or something, or was it just that you were making images from the context around you and people kind of reacted to it as like, oh, it's Pakistani sci-fi, it's just so unusual?
so yeah, that's a good point. I think there was 2 things. One was that, like you said, there's no Pakistani sci-fi, and that's annoying. Like it's always Western or like, Far Asian anime type stuff, or if we are represented, it's very like, intense Tatooine sort of things in Star Wars. But it's up to us to be able to make that. So that was definitely a motivation. And the other one, this is a little dark, but the other one was I had just come back from the US, and I was like going to like reverse culture shock. Like you probably saw something similar. Like it's just there's a lot of stimulus in Pakistan, and not all of it is positive.
Right.
And what it was doing was like pulling me away from my culture a little bit. Like just the constant negative news was making me stop appreciating all the beautiful things that we have, the heritage and just the buildings. When you go in Old Lahore and that stuff, like you stop noticing those after a while because there's so much, you know, evil that's demanding your attention. So this was kind of a personal project also because I was taking things that I found interesting and putting them in a context that was divorced from this reality. So I could appreciate them again. So like a Pakistani truck and the architecture and just all of these different things and putting them in a space where they take the focus. Um,
Right.
so it was those two things were at play for sure while I was doing this series. I was like,
Yeah.
what is it that I find beautiful about Pakistan that I've forgotten about? Like you look at a truck now, you don't usually look at it like, oh, that's so pretty. You're like, this guy's about to crash into me. I better get, you know what I mean? So it's the reality of living in Pakistan can sometimes take away from this incredible like visual and cultural world themes that we have going on. So it was a play on that, and yeah, that's how it started.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just want to comment that reverse culture shock is the worst. Like,
Yeah.
it's just the worst. Culture shock is one thing, but reverse culture shock is the worst. I've gone through it a few times, and it's just it. I don't think it's necessarily country specific, but you just see the worst in yourself and the worst in your country, and you just can't like it's the most destabilizing thing ever. So I totally understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, like it's yeah, I couldn't get over it. It took me a few months to get over it. I think like just seeing, even beggars on the streets and these little kids running around is just, how are you guys able to deal with this was always my
Yeah.
question. But
Yeah.
but it gets better. You learn to integrate.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely, this is kind of getting off topic, but just I think that, when it's your own country, it's so much easier to see the evils of it. And when
Yeah,
when you're a foreigner, you're willing to see balance things more, just see a balance.
right.
Um, but yeah, so when you started, how do I want to say it? When you kind of started making the in the game studio, and then for this exhibition, you were using VR. You were basically, I remember at the exhibition, one of a couple of the things you did where you would put on the headset and you see a 360-degree view around you. So what was it like to kind of work with those different, evolve along the way and work with those different, new kinds of technologies?
It was amazing. You've been to Korea, right?
Yes, I used to
Yeah.
live there. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was there for 2 years during the time that I was developing this exhibition. And those guys are big in, just using technology as part of their art. In museums and everywhere, they'll have things just casually thrown in where it blows your mind. You're like, why
Yeah.
isn't everyone doing this? So that was an influence. Like when I saw what was possible, I was like, okay, like, if I'm going to do an exhibition in Pakistan, I'm definitely going to use some of these things. And yeah, like I didn't realize how fun it would be to like make those 360 paintings and put on that headset and actually look around and see people's reactions. That was even more fun when they did that. Like when we exhibited in Peshawar, the carpenter who helped us like put up the paintings, he didn't know what VR was, and he put it on for the first time. Just his reaction, like I'll never forget that. That was one of the best moments of the exhibitions.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
'Cause-
awesome. I can just
yeah,
imagine, and I just imagine with like Pakistani enthusiasm, like
yeah, yeah, yeah. And this was like a big Pathan dude, and he's like, "Whoa!" And it was too much fun. Um,
wonderful.
yeah, and then we had like kids coming in Islamabad, and anyone who tried the VR, that was one of the highlights. And then augmented reality and all. It's just I find these things to be magic, and they always seem inaccessible until I went to Korea. And like I said, did you travel around Korea?
A little tiny bit, but it was mostly for performances. Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, I was, I saw it definitely in like the last, I was dancing for a company, and the last show that I did when I was there, there was all kind, it was very basic, but it was incorporating technology, and that was just normal, projections and
Yeah.
this kind of stuff. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like we used to every weekend, there was a tour company, we should just leave Seoul and go
Mm.
somewhere. And these random little towns used to have museums that would, they were better than museums you would see in big cities in other countries. And so that really inspired me in terms of what's possible and how tech can like advance the experience that people can have. So it was great. It was great. I actually want to do more of that.
Yeah, and well, that was actually you've given me the most wonderful connection to the next question, which is, like if you could, um, what technology do you want to work with? Like if money were no object, or like what would you want to create? What technology would you want to incorporate?
Oof. I mean, I would like, I wish virtual reality were at a more advanced state. Like I have a VR set at home also, but it has a lot of issues. Um, Nausea being a big one.
Oh
Uh,
no.
oh yeah, it's horrible because your brain thinks you're moving, but your body is still, and it just gets confused.
Oh dear.
Um, but yeah, I would want to do something related to virtual reality and or augmented reality in that like if money were no object, I would love to do a tour of like old Lahore where you're wearing some sort of augmented headset, and it's kind of it's overlaying um, details onto the tour that you're doing. I think that would be a lot of fun. um, and just crazy virtual reality experiences. I'm working on a couple of games right now, um, which are also based in Pakistan and sci-fi. So yeah, I don't know. Like I just like to play around with it. My experience has been that it's better to like make something and then the money kind of comes,
Right.
uh, rather than trying to get the money because I don't know how to do that.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, if it works, that's the best. That's the best. And so now, kind of like, just quickly walk us through your process from like start to finish. Do you kind of start with a photograph? Do you start with a sketch? Do you like what are kind of, do you have certain softwares that you're using? Like how does it come together?
I usually start with like an idea,
Okay.
and it's like a very generic sort of idea. Like I want to show um, a, the class difference, for example, in Pakistan. Like that should be the focus of this. So what's the best way to show that? And then that kind of itself breaks itself into like visual problems. Like one of the best ways. Like I think one of the images that people really seem to like was the street kids playing cricket um, in the city. So.
I don't know if you did you send me that one?
I'm not sure. Let me see which ones I sent you. I can talk about those. Um, yeah, so guy with the robot woman. Um, we have we fundamentally all of these things are like looking at different aspects of Pakistani society's relationship with technology. and it's a weird and very interesting relationship, which you can take in many different directions. Like we have everyone has cell phones, but a lot of people go without food. So it's a weird sort of thing that we have going on. You'll have in Lahore, especially, you'll have like rickshaws parked next to donkeys, parked next to like the latest BMW, just all at the same. Like it's a strange sort of place in that sense. Like it's not how do you say? It's not homogenous, the development. It's very much like there's pockets of development and then lots of poverty, and some of it has trickled into those poverty areas. And so in exploring those intersections and those relationships is always fun. And then exaggerating it is what sci-fi does really well. So, like this guy working on the robot, there's so many of these shops all around Lahore and Pakistan of just old dudes working on like the latest computers. And you would rather go to them than you would to a big shop because they'll give you good rates and they'll actually get the job done. So yeah, it's just to play on that sort of thing. And I also think it would be interesting to explore like where our religious boundaries would lie when it comes to female robots, because we have some strange rules regarding those sorts of relationships as well. So yeah, I think it's mostly that. Like I'll start off with like what sort of theme do I want to think about, and then what's the most fun way to do it, because I didn't want this to get dark too much.
Right. Yeah. And then do you kind of like do you actually sketch it out first, or do you put it straight into the computer?
Yeah, I'll sketch it out. I'll make some thumbnails and then remake them in the computer. Like I have a tablet, so I can easily like draw on the screen as well. And then yeah, like I'm a very lazy person, so I'm learning new tools to like have to do less work. So from there, it's either like Photoshop and paint yourself, and then also 3D, and then also like smashing photographs together, and just whatever it takes to get the job done. Like I'm not really a purist when it comes to technique. It's more about like, how do I portray this idea as best as I can without spending 10 years on it.
Right. Yeah. I think, I don't know why, but I think one of my favorite images that I saw, and it was in the exhibition, was this like strange creature with the glowing eyes who's playing the sitar.
Yeah.
And that, I know that you did send me that. So it's the dude playing the musical instrument. That. And it was, I don't know, there was just something about it that was quite striking about it to me. I don't know. It was like bringing the music and the art into the art somehow.
Yeah, right. Because you have a music and dance background, right? Thanks. That's I like that one too. That was actually the question. Like, okay, so how will tech influence music? And then I'm a visual person, so I have to represent it visually, because the reality would probably be very boring visually, like just a computer, just
right. Yeah.
So so it was like, okay, so right now we have human beings with 2 arms, but if there's like some synchronized robot with 4 arms, I would love to hear what that would sound like. So yeah, that was. I'm still waiting on someone to actually come up with some sound that might match that on the sitar.
Yeah. I mean, this is a very conceptual question, and I'm just thinking about it literally because I'm also working on the Lahore Digital Arts Festival, and you're kind of working in digital media. Like, what do you think? Digital art as a medium, do you think it's the sort of thing where it's going to kind of take over? Like what does the digital medium bring to it? Why is it important? What are some of the drawbacks as you see it? this whole kind of digital art.
Yeah, this digital revolution. It's hard to
I think
say.
we're past the revolution by now. I don't know. I think
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah. But might get accelerated, with COVID and everyone being at home. This is like, look at how we're communicating now, right?
right.
So I don't know. Like, it's in terms of art, I don't think like traditional work is going anywhere. There's just a purity to it. The way like crafts don't go anywhere. You may not be buying them when you buy like plastic Tupperware, but you will buy them. And mostly it's for the craftsmanship. And I think the same thing is going to happen with art, but I think digital art is going to go off into other directions. Like, it's not going to be trying to compete with traditional art. It's just going to take on a life of its own, and it already has.
Yeah.
We're seeing like, all of these different mediums and interactions, and it's just going to get more and more accelerated. Where it's going, I have no idea. Like, I honestly think that we're going to reach a Matrix type situation, not in terms of the AI, liquidating us for batteries, but just the fact that there will be a global network that anyone can tap into, because we're kind of there. It's just the interface is wonky and decentralized, but it just that seems to be kind of where we're heading. If you look at what's happening in video games and virtual reality and that sort of stuff, it's getting more and more interesting. And that's why I moved into animations as well, because like images just started to feel a little static, and it's not a big jump to give them a little bit of motion and take them into that area. So yeah, I'm excited. I can't make any predictions, but I'm really excited to see what happens.
Yes, definitely. So for the people watching, if you have questions for Omar, please put them in the chat and I will ask. In the meantime, Omar, what's next for you? What are you working on these days? And if people want to follow you, where should they go?
Yeah, I have Facebook page and Twitter. I don't remember any of my handles, but I can put them down. We can have a chat or whatever.
Yeah, if you pop
Um,
them in the chat, I'll make sure that they get to somewhere useful.
yeah, sure. And in terms of what's next, like, I don't know yet. It's right now I am wait, here's Twitter. I'm working on a few different projects, and I want to see where those go because they're really exciting me. One is like a video game, again based in like a sci-fi Pakistan, and I'm doing my art on the side. I'm trying to break away from sci-fi art, just because there's only so much you can explore, and it's started to like the well only runs so deep, right, in terms of inspiration. And I made this other series of kind of darker images, and that was rejected by a Pakistani exhibition. And I found that to be a great sign that I'm going in the right direction. So I might continue making those. Um, and I'm working, well, I've finished a novel, also Pakistan and sci-fi, and I'm just looking into getting published, which is a bit of a process. And I don't know if I have the time for all of that. So yeah, there's a lot of things. I have like a day job, so that keeps the bread on the table, and then I'm just exploring, just seeing all these different facets. The one thing that I cannot seem to get rid of is Pakistan and its influences. Like, I've literally moved to the other side of the planet, and I can't like get rid of the influences it's had on me. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. It's just like that's where I was marinated. So whatever project I do is going to have those influences, but I'm trying to branch out into different mediums.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, that's really cool. Yeah, I really love the images. And so I've put the links to your website, and your Twitter, Insta are in the chat. So definitely check out Omar's work. It's really cool. I do owe somebody else a happy dance. Keeper Map subscribed along the way. So thank you so much for subscribing, Keeper. That's, I think it was 32 months in a row, which is amazing. Definitely this show is brought to you by you. All of the programming that happens at CosmoQuest is made possible by donations and people who are supporting through Patreon and by subscribing to Twitch and leaving reviews on the podcast and all this kind of stuff. So not only is there community coffee most weekdays, there's also the Daily Space, which is your daily science news roundup, and Astronomy Cast podcast, and the Weekly Space Hangout, and Open Space with Fraser Kane. All of this, they're kind of associated with CosmoQuest. So check out the links in the chat that are coming up. Omar, there are some people, because we have a Patreon, so there's some names that I have to read out, but you're free to go if you want to. But thank you so much for joining me today. This has been a really great chat.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, and I'm sure we will be in touch because of the Lahore Digital Festival.
Yes, the Lahore Digital Arts Festival. Omar and I, like I said, we haven't met in person, but we know the same people.
Yeah.
Like the founder of Lahore Digital Arts Festival, Najam, invited me to speak at the conference in Islamabad that introduced me to Pakistan.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That guy is well connected.
Yes, he is well connected. Najam knows everyone. But thank you so much, Umar.
Absolutely. Have a good one.
Okay. All right. So before we sign off, I am just... Yes. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. We're back. We just weren't prepared for Omar to leave, but that's okay. So I should be here. They should be hearing me, right? Okay. Okay. So don't go away just yet. Stand here. We have to thank some specially wonderful people for supporting in the Patreon. And they are Bill Nash, Richard Hendricks, Helga Bjorkhoek, I'm so sorry, Andreas Siegel, Mark Sykes, Greg Thorwald, Jordan Elkurdi, Mark Walker, Donald E. Mundis, and Steve Peterson. You guys rock. Thank you so much for supporting Community Coffee and CosmoQuest and PSI. I don't know how what that happy dance turned into, but it turned into something else. But thank you, you're amazing. You can get a shout out on Community Coffee by supporting us on Patreon as well. And I will be back next Monday, and my guest is the very same artist that I went down a rabbit hole on camera a couple of weeks back, Anna von Mertens, and she does textile art, and she's coming on to talk about it with me next week on Monday, and I will see you then. Bye-bye.